So again, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Nicole and I'm the head of community over at Trusted. If you're not familiar with Trusted, we are the place for the modern nurse. We do place nurses in travel assignments all across the country. And we also have an incredible wealth of career resources, whether it's blog articles, we have a podcast, we have amazing interviews, and obviously virtual events just like this. And so this is the first of a 5-event series all about healthy finances. And so we're really happy that you're joining us. A couple of virtual event norms, just in case you haven't been to too many virtual events in the past, a couple things to keep in mind. So good vibes, good times. This is a time to have fun, be present. And yes, having fun with finances is a thing we do too. And that these events are a safe space to be yourself. We do want to hear you when you want to be heard. So if you're not chatting with the group, make sure that you are muted. Everyone is muted right now, so it's nothing to be concerned about. But that leads us to the third one, which is if you have questions, you can use the Zoom chat for anything that you want our amazing speaker to address, and we'll do our best to filter them up to Lauren when she's ready for questions. And feedback, this is so critical for me and Casey and our whole team at Trusted. Your feedback will make us better. And so please share your thoughts during and after the event, especially after the event. You will get an email asking you for feedback. Please fill that out. It is so helpful for us, and we really appreciate you taking the minute or so to leave your feedback. And with that, we're gonna go. I want to introduce to you Lauren Mochizuki. She's an ER nurse and the creator of Casa Mochi, and she's an amazing, amazing human being. And with that, I will stop sharing and let Lauren share.
Hi guys. Let's see, Nicole, can you, oh. What happened?
Did you lose it, Lauren?
I did lose it. What
go
happened?
to the bottom of your screen and find the Zoom icon. That should pop it back up.
Okay, Zoom. There it is.
Yep.
Oh, that was crazy. What is
I know, it's scary. It seems like it disappeared.
It is scary. I'm like, where did Nicole go? Okay, so now I just hit share screen.
You got it.
And there we go. Okay. Okay, can you see everything?
Sure can. Looks great.
Awesome. Okay, great. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Lauren Mochizuki, and I want to first commend you because I know that finances, if you're brand new, it can be something that's just seemingly overwhelming. I know, I've been there, I totally get it. But I want to start off with the logo that you see. So, well, not really a logo, but kind of a slogan. So save better, spend better, live better. Ultimately, I believe and I know that once we get a handle on our finances, once we figure out how we can save better, spend better, you know, the results are just exponential. You will see them throughout all aspects of your life, but ultimately your life will just be more peaceful. You will feel at ease knowing that you are in complete control of your finances. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. Okay, oh, I gotta move this thing. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is just an overview of the different topics. I believe that Nicole said she had already put out a link. I created a special worksheet for you guys just to make it super easy to take notes and to jot down different things because this is a lot of information and I'm going to do my best to make it as simple as possible for you guys. But I do believe that when you take notes, it can really reinforce the information as well. Feel free to ask questions and there will be points in time when I will stop to answer those, okay? So who am I? So I'm Lauren Mochizuki. I've been an ER registered nurse for actually like 11 and a half years now. It makes me feel and sound kind of old, but so it's really fun. I love being an ER nurse and I believe that, you know, having this profession really enabled me or helped me to pay off all of this debt. So you can see I'm a former spendaholic turned budget enthusiast. So my husband and I, we buckled down and we paid off $266,000 of debt in 33 months. And, you know, the funny thing is, I'm just going to give a brief synopsis about our story is that what happened was I might have been like you. So I felt very overwhelmed by finances. My husband actually was the one who proposed budgeting to me and getting our finances in order. And I was shocked. I was appalled. I thought, why would I want to go on a budget? Because I had all these preconceived notions about what budgeting is, but like now standing on the other side of it, I can tell you that, getting on a budget and getting in that process of having your finances in order is exciting. And it really is one of the most important things I've ever done in my life, important and meaningful. So that journey changed who I am, and I'm excited for all of you guys to do the same. Okay, so first poll that we're gonna do, yay, okay. So what level would you use to describe your finance management? This will just help to give me an idea of, who is my audience right now? Are most of you beginners? Are you intermediate? What do I need to know? And that kind of helps to guide how I talk about these different things. I could say when I started off, I was a complete beginner. I didn't know what anything regarding finances was. Okay, so it looks like so far, 21% are beginner, or no, 52% are beginners, 43% are intermediate, and a few of you are advanced. Excellent. Okay. All right, awesome. So the majority of you are beginners and intermediate. That's perfect. This is for you. The advanced, I hope maybe, as we go further along, if you have more specific questions, feel free to answer or to ask them. But yeah, this is geared a lot for the beginner and the intermediate, but I will have resources later on for more advanced people as well. Okay, so let's carry on. Okay, I don't know. Do I just exit out the little polls? Do I just put an X on it? I can still see it.
Yep, you can X on it. We don't see it.
Okay. All right, here we go. So budgeting basics. So mindset. I just want you to stop for a second and think in your mind, what do you think of when you hear the words budget and finances? So when my husband first came to me and he said those two words, it was like I just stopped, like everything went slow motion, because the connotation that I personally had, maybe some of you do, maybe you don't, but were bad. I thought that budgets and finances were hard. I thought that being on a budget meant that everything was going to be so controlling and restrictive and boring. And, what it turns out to be, I kind of feel like the word budget and finances now are synonymous with freedom. Because once you get those things in order, and once you have complete control and financial clarity, I think is huge too, because that's what having a budget will give you. It gives you the freedom to be able to plan your life accordingly and to free up actually your mental space. Because I don't know if you're like me, but when you have any kind of worry, especially when it comes to finances, how am I going to pay my bills? It takes up a lot of this, it takes up a lot of occupancy in your brain. And then it makes it hard to do things like work and carry out your normal, activities. So I just wanted you to kind of do like a little self-check to see what comes up. And hopefully we can change that, because like I said, I think they're really, really exciting. Okay, let me move this. So here are some common financial challenges that I hear a lot. I have an Instagram. You can find me at Casa Mochi, and a lot of nurses and healthcare providers, I've heard this from them. So one, I keep overspending. I have no self-control. So here's how we're going to combat that. You're going to feel in control of your spending by making well-informed and planned purchases. So I thought by being on a budget that meant I can't buy anything. Like I can't, still get my coffees, because guys, I love, I know it's overpriced Starbucks, but I love getting myself a coffee every now and then. And it turns out you can do that. You just plan for it, and you know that you won't feel guilty because it's in the budget. So I also hear, I'm tired of living paycheck to paycheck. So you're going to be so financially secure that you forget when payday is. The goal, but I want you to know this is a goal. This isn't something that might happen right away, but the goal is to be living off of last month's income. That's a goal. Because once you do that, you go from living in like a crisis mode to a more relaxed and kind of like preventative mode. You're no longer living in that survival area. The next thing is I feel inundated with debt. Now, I feel like this is a very, very common challenge among healthcare professionals, especially nurses. We have all kinds of debt: car debt, mortgage debt, school debt, all kinds. So once you get a plan to pay off that debt, you feel the burden lifted because you have a clear plan and you see where all of your money is going. Last thing is, I can't figure out how to save money. So here's the thing. If you want to save money, we are going to make it a priority in your budget. It will be very clear. You will set goals, and then we're going to make it happen. Okay. So really quickly, some habits of financially successful people. Consistency is key. They keep promises they make to themselves. They always spend less than they make. They don't try to keep up with the Joneses, which I know is hard, especially in our profession. They budget routinely. They practice gratitude, and they plan for emergencies. One of the biggest and most important things that we did is by planning for emergencies, we know that they're going to happen one day. It's just a matter of, are you prepared or are you not prepared? And knowing that you have a fund for when life happens to you, again, contributes to that peace of mind and that freedom, knowing that you're already ready. Okay, so budget, the definition of budget. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the amount of money that's available for, required for, or assigned to a particular purpose. This is the most important thing that I want you to take away from this part. So your budget has to be sustainable. For example, if you start sitting down and making your budget and you decide, okay, I've been spending $600 a month on my grocery bills, and I think now that I'm on a budget, I'm gonna like cut it down to like $350. I say, like stop right there. That's probably one of the worst things that you can do because it's not realistic. It's not sustainable. I would suggest doing something more like bringing it down maybe $50 at a time, and then you can roll with the punches that way. But the purpose of budgeting is to make a plan that you are going to stick with. And if you do something and if you're doing something unrealistically, you're setting yourself up for failure. And we don't want that. We want you to feel confident with your plan. The different budgeting methods. So there's the 50-30-20. 50% of your income goes to needs, 30% goes to wants, and 20% goes to savings. Now, the reason why this is my least favorite is because I don't feel like there is a one size fits all when it comes to budgeting. Nicole's budget's going to be different. Casey's budget's going to be different, and all of your budget's going to be different because we have different life circumstances. I have 2 children. Some people may have no children. So I have a whole kids budget with all the categories, and so this is going to look so different for everybody. So I do have to say though, I love the idea of putting 20% to savings, but at first this may not be realistic, and that's okay. So I just wanted you to know about this method, just so you're aware. Perhaps some of you might want to try it, but it is my least favorite just because I feel like it's hard to fit yourself into a certain system. Next is the envelope system, withdrawing cash for certain budget categories. This can be used in conjunction with a zero-based budget. Here's an example. So guys, I've already talked about how I love my Starbucks coffee, okay? I know that it can be a problem area sometimes for me. So I budget for my Starbucks coffee under my recreation or fun budget category. So let's say you also have the same, habit that I do, but you want to start cutting back on it. What you could do is you could take out some of your fund money in cash and put it in an envelope. I'm going to carry it with me, Lauren's fund money. And then, I know that once I've spent, let's say it's $40 of coffee for the month, I'm done. It makes it very finite. Whereas if I have my card and I'm just swiping away, it's different. You don't know exactly when you're done. Obviously, having the budget and checking in with it will make it more concrete. But if you're having a problem area and you can spend cash on it, I recommend giving it a chance. Here's a little disclaimer with the envelope system. My husband and I did it for a while with many categories. And what we did wrong, I think, is that I carried them all with me at once. And not once, but twice I lost them fully loaded. Thankfully, they made their way back to me. So what I encourage you to do is, if you do the envelope system, just take the category with you that you're going to spend money on. So if I'm going to get coffee, I'm only taking my fund money envelope with me. Okay, next is the zero-based budget. So to me, this is like the holy grail of budgeting. So it's my preferred method. You budget every dollar until you have zero. It's income minus expenses equals zero. So the reason why I love this kind of budgeting so much is it provides the ultimate financial clarity. So for an example, let's say you made, I'm going to do a paycheck example. You made, I don't know, $2,000, we'll just say, in one paycheck. So you will budget every single dollar until you have zero left. So, let's think of all your budget categories: food, clothing, recreation, all those. But what this means is that every dollar is accounted for. There's no question as to where your money is going or where it has gone, because you're now keeping track. I like this because, like I said, it just provides the utmost financial clarity. Okay, so if anyone has questions so far, I am happy to take them.
You can just pop them in the chat and I can read them out loud to Lauren if that's the easiest. Andrea asked, for the 50-30-20 method, is it gross or net pay?
So it's what you take home. I'm having a brain fart right now, but it's the money that you take home. What I want to be clear about too, which it's not really, I'm not going to cover in this particular webinar, but what I encourage you when you get to the point when you're saving for retirement, if you're not already, is that money, because you want to budget, I'll talk about this later, for the things that are the most important for you first. And to me, retirement is one of those things that has a high priority. So the reason why I bring this up is because what I encourage you to do is automatically having your work transfer that money into a retirement account before it hits your bank account. Because I feel like you don't even, it's automated, you don't have to think about it. So what you're budgeting is what you take home, every one of those dollars.
Okay, thanks, Lauren.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jane asked, how do you recommend best doing the zero-based method with a nursing salary that changes week to week? That's a great question.
That is a great question. Yes. So, okay, let's start with a couple of things. So first of all, and I'll mention this later too, but you want to budget for the most important things first. We could think off the top of our head. Let's see, food, we got to eat; transportation, we got to get around; housing, where we live, is important, and probably like utilities. You need to have running water and gas and all that stuff. So this is what I would suggest, is that I want you to start tracking all those categories and see what's the average, like about how much do I spend in these every month? Because that's what you're aiming for. But this is what you're also going to do, is if you don't already have a savings account or some kind of savings built in, you want to make sure that you are doing what we call sinking funds. And all this means is that if you have a little bit of extra, because obviously your pay is variable, if you have a little extra 1 month, you want to stashing that away, perhaps in the categories that are the most important to you, that you need to survive. So I feel like once you start building that up over time, you end up having all sinking funds and like this great big essential, and that takes away a lot of stress. Like there might be a little bit of a hustle period where you're trying to maybe, make a little extra in order to get to that point. That's definitely one thing that my husband and I did when we were first establishing ourselves and trying to get our emergency fund. I think that was really important though, because once you have that money set up, if you can't work for a few weeks or life happens and whatever, that you're taken care of for a few months in the most important categories that matters.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Lauren. Let's see. Chantel asked, do you plan your budget on the previous month's income or upcoming month's income?
So eventually what you want to do is you want to get to the point where you're living off of last month's income. So I'll give you an example. So we're in the month of September. So what my husband and I do is at the end of August, we tally up everything that we made in that month. Arbitrarily, let's just say it's $6,000. So then at the top of September, total income, we've got $6,000 to work with. And that is what we will be spending throughout the whole month of September. So I think to me, that's really important, because you have this buffer of a month's worth of income. And I feel like when you get off that paycheck to paycheck cycle and you're living off of money that hasn't been spent for a month, it just changes the way you feel about money. The other thing, actually, going back to the previous question that I want to mention really quick too, is that when you're taking inventory, I mentioned taking inventory of how much you're spending for all the different budget categories. I also want you to take an inventory of what's the lowest amount you make on average, and try to have like a template budget with just that money. So let's say you have a range of making between, I don't know, $3,000 to $5,000 a month. So I want you to have a budget for that $3,000 where you address your food, the 4 categories that we talked about first, and then everything else after. But I feel like if you're used to budgeting off of the least amount of money that you're going to make, I think you're going to be really successful that way.
Okay, great. Let's see. So Nicole asked, and Nicole, I might need you to clarify this a little bit. I think she's asking how we can distinguish our needs from our wants. And this has been a particular pain point for her.
Yes, I hear you.
Perfect.
This is a really good question. I'm going to kind of explain to you how it worked for me. So here's the thing. Needs, I think of now, are things that I need to survive. Needs. I need to eat. I need to sleep. I need to get to work. I need to provide for my kids, like just basic things like clothing and stuff like that. What I realized after paying off all that debt in such a short amount of time was that what I thought were needs before, a lot of them were actually wants. I thought that I needed like the newest purse, or I needed the newest, to go out to the newest restaurant or whatever. Here's the thing. It's not to say that you can't still do those things when you budget for them. And I think that you can still have a very rich and fulfilling life on a budget. But, we had worked so hard and like did all these crazy hours and all these crazy shifts paying off all that debt, that I realized that what it all boiled down to, the needs are actually really simple. Like, I need to make sure that my family's healthy. I need to make sure that we got food to eat, a place to stay. So here's the thing. It's obviously going to look really different for you too. But I think that that's something that will be clarified to you along your journey with finances. But ultimately, I think that it's really interesting to see how that changes for person to person.
All right, that's awesome. Thanks, Lauren. I think that's probably all the time we have for questions before we move on to the next section, but we'll have other opportunities to ask questions later on, I'm sure.
Okay, so let me go to the next slide. Oh, we have another poll. And yes, this is because I just genuinely want to know, this question is basically going to be asking you, what is your biggest source of frustration when it comes to managing your finances? Saving money, paying off your debt, feeling like you're out of control, planning for retirement, or for some people, maybe all of the above. I always think this is so interesting to see because, again, it's one of those things that budgeting is really personal. Everyone's budget's going to be different, and everyone's kind of source of contention with money is going to be very, very different. Okay, so let's see. It looks like the majority of people so far, it's paying off debt. Yeah, I hear you. We're going to do a whole webinar on that coming up. So be sure that you're signed up for that with Trusted Health. And then all of the above. Oh, I hear you guys. I get it. It's all so frustrating. Planning for retirement, a tie for not knowing where to start and not having a plan. I want to encourage you guys that the budget, figuring out, starting to like track your expenses and starting a budget is the best place to start. So I'm happy that we decided to do this one first because this will give you a very clear path. Okay, awesome. All right, I am going to close that out and move on. Okay. So here are the budgeting principles. Spend less than you make. This can take, this is kind of like a big national issue, I feel like, because uh, I forgot the statistic, but you'd be surprised. The majority of people in this country spend very close to what they make, if not more. And I think when you get into the habit of constantly having your needs category be less than what you make, you'll see that you have all this extra money to save and to start planning for your future. So check in with your budget regularly. So what I recommend is maybe just giving it a quick little peek once a week, just check in, see how you're doing with your categories. But I also encourage once a month having a big budget meeting, whether it be, with your budget buddy, which is the next thing, or whether it's just with yourself. But it needs to be a few, an hour or two of uninterrupted time where you can reconcile everything and just make sure that you're on track. This is very important. And budget for the most important things first. We've talked about that. This is absolutely necessary to be sustainable. Okay, so common budget categories. I wanted to also mention that if you had downloaded if you went to the link that Nicole shared, I have a budget category template just to give you ideas. Like I said, everyone's budget will be different, but I go into details. Here's what I suggest though. When you are first starting out, don't make it too complicated. You'll see that my list, I think, has at least maybe close to 100, maybe less. I don't remember, I made it a long time ago. But if you start with anything, just start with these basic ones. Food, transportation, I mean, you can read all of them. But even if you're not putting money in there every month, it'll start to give you an idea. Like, for example, when you think about food, you think, oh gosh, well, what about the potlucks at work? Or what about like the dining out aspect? What about the Costco membership? I mean, there's all these different facets, but to start, just start simple. And then as you go and as you refine, you can start to kind of niche down your budget categories. Okay, so now we're going to talk about refining your budget. So give yourself time, give yourself grace. And when I say give yourself time, I want to be very clear. When we started our budgeting journey, it was challenging because you're doing this new foreign thing and you're trying to get a handle. But I want to emphasize that you need to give yourself lots of grace. It took us a solid, I would say 6-ish months to really start to feel the hang of it. You might meet a lot of resistance even in yourself. And when you start to see, or maybe even anger or frustration, when you see where your money is going and how much you're spending on certain categories that you had no idea about, but now it's very clear. So here's the thing, don't be mad about it. Just move on. You know what you're spending on what the different categories are, and just see how you're going to change that moving forward. That's the most important thing. You have to be flexible and hold yourself accountable. So by being flexible, I think it's important to establish that, every month may look very different. When I know that, let's say when school's starting, I know that I'm going to budget extra for my children for them to have school supplies or whatever they need. But, the month of January is going to look very different from how I budget in the month of December when it's, Christmas time. So I just want you to know that this is very fluid, just how life is, right? Life is never the same. Life is never boring. We have to be able to know how to adapt within our budget. Okay, so, but different budgeting apps. I just want to see. Okay, we're doing good on time. So I want to tell you that I have never used Mint, but these are the most popular budgeting apps out there. So I just kind of wanted to go over them briefly, and then I'll expand on the one that I know very well. So Mint is a popular one. It is free. It might be a good resource to use to start out when you're getting the hang of budgeting. I've never used it, so I can't really speak to it. I have heard of friends who've used it and say that it's not quite as detailed as the one that I use. So I use YNAB, or we use YNAB. It stands for You Need a Budget. There is an annual fee. I have found that it's well worth it at this point in our finances, and even when we are paying off of debt, because of the level of clarity that it offers. You can see all different things, including, the age of your money. You can see your net worth, all kinds of like graphs and charts for those of you who are like super nerdy or like type A. I feel like you guys would totally geek out on YNAB. So that's an option. Every dollar is also an option that's free if you guys want to check out and just like test the water with another free app. Personal Capital, I've also heard really good things about them. They're free to use, but once you start using them for investments, then you have to pay a fee for them to manage your finances. So those are some options. However, there might be some of you who are old school and who like pen and paper. And I actually really appreciate that too. There's, you know, when you start to put your goals to, oh, I don't know, I just moved something. Okay, that's fine. When you start to put your goals down to writing, I feel like it makes them come alive even more. So this is the monthly budget template that I've made. Now, for some of you who aren't able to do quite a monthly budget yet, just do a paycheck budget. So what you can do, for example, we're in September, so you would just circle September, and you can just write, you know, on the side, paycheck 1, paycheck 2, whichever paycheck, and then just do the whole thing. Now, just so you know, this is kind of a more like when you're first starting out. When you start to get more budget categories, then maybe you want to start considering something else. But for some of you, this might work well. But anyway, this is a free option, and this is part of that download that we have. But going back really quick, the most important thing, I just want to highlight that. Choose whichever method you will actually do. This is a theme. Like, you guys, I just feel like it's so important, because if it feels easier and if it just gives you more peace of mind, whichever method it is, whichever app it is, just go with that one. Pen and paper or electronics. How to choose your budget buddy. This is really, really important. So first, I want to start off with, if you have a spouse, I highly recommend you getting your spouse on board. You know, part of our journey of my husband and I paying off all that debt together, it changed our relationship in ways that I can't even explain. But, you know, we went through all of that together to come out the other side, I feel like, stronger in so many ways. So if you have a spouse, I highly recommend trying to get them on board. It might not be possible. Some may be resistant. And for those, I highly recommend just encouraging them every now and then, asking questions, and just know that when you talk about it, just let them know there's going to be no finger pointing, no anger. Like, a lot of people get really defensive when it comes to finances. So just remind them that it will be in a safe space. If you're not going to, if you don't have a spouse, this is what I would recommend. Either a friend or a family member, even a coworker who you trust, who you respect, someone that won't enable you, and a cheerleader. So these are really important. And I think one of the most important things is, for example, if you have a really good friend, but they're not likely to call you out, this is a problem. I mean, they have to be able to have a completely open relationship with you and not be afraid to, I guess, to call you out when you're not holding yourself accountable to what your goals are. This is important. But they also need to be a cheerleader, like someone you can call when you're having a problem. I liken this to what, you know, our patients go through who are in AA. So we know a lot of them who have, you know, alcohol issues. They have a mentor, and they know that at any given time they can call that mentor and they will be there for them. They will go meet them if something's going on. Like, okay, girl, I'm at Target and I'm about to like blow some money. I don't know, whatever it is. The whole point is that you just need to be able to trust that this person is willing to be firm with you during this whole process. Okay. So how to handle big and unexpected expenses. So the first thing is to save for big expenses throughout the year. So I think it's important, you know, Nicole, I have you guys on the bottom and I want to figure out how to get it to, oh, there we go. Perfect. I got it. Save for big expenses monthly. I'm going to give you an example. So property taxes in the state of California where I live, those are a hefty fee. So what we do is throughout the whole year, we set aside a certain budgeted amount. We divide up what we anticipate we're going to pay for the whole year. And every month we budget for that. So that way, when it comes time to pay for our property taxes, it isn't this big, huge shock to our budget. Next, establish sinking funds for foreseen expenses. So once you get out of that like crisis way of dealing with your finances, you are going to be surprised at how really convenient it is. Let's say your car breaks down, but because you have been putting a little bit extra in your car maintenance fund, you know, throughout the months, you'll see that, oh my gosh, for example, my AC just broke and it's been really hot in California. But we have a cushion of some money in there. So I know that I can go ahead and dip into that and use it, and it's no problem. Like, we didn't have to go without certain expenses this month. It was just there ready to go. Different things that you want to look at in this regard is things like house maintenance. Things always come up with your house, you know, whether, you know, it doesn't matter where you live, obviously. But I think establishing those foreseen expenses and putting extra money in there whenever you can is key to living in a more proactive way with your finances. And establish emergency fund. This is huge. I feel like, you know, before all this happened, I would have said, you know, having just $1,000 would have been fine. But this whole situation, you know, has with COVID and all that, has affected nurses' finances. And I'm sure none of us ever thought that that would happen. So I think what's important is to establish a bit of a beefier emergency fund. So I would say at the minimum, try to set up a $5,000 emergency fund. But eventually, you know, and you know, this is going to take some time, but you want to get to the point where you have, I would recommend 6 months worth of your income stocked away. But when I say that, you know, retirement doesn't count towards that. It's got to be specifically for an emergency in an account where you can get it very easily. This is very important. Okay. Okay, this is a good time for questions.
We already have a few questions. This is great.
Okay.
So Andrea, she might have answered this, but I'm still going to ask it just to make sure there's something else she can add. So Andrea said, I work for the VA. In the past, nurses have been going to work without pay until Congress passes a budget for the year. How would you recommend budgeting and saving for emergency account? So it sounds like you would save at least $5,000 to the 6 months.
Yes. Wait, I'm sorry, but I don't think I understood. Can you say this one more time? Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. I think I probably read that a little fast. In the past, nurses have been going to work without pay until Congress passes a budget for the year. She works for the VA. How would you recommend budgeting and saving for an emergency account?
Yes. Okay. So yeah, exactly what I said. I feel like first establishing like that first five grand at least. I mean, if you can go like even to at least 10, that would probably make you feel even better. But having the 6 months stocked away, which is hard and it will take time, will just give you that peace of mind knowing that you can live. I mean, I can't, first of all, I can't imagine what that's like because that's a lot of unknown, but you will feel much more comfort, much more peace knowing that you have that buffer stocked away in your account, easy to access.
Perfect. And then Laurel asked, how do you budget for health-related costs, especially because they can vary and be unpredictable?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it depends greatly too on your insurance. So some people have HMO, some people have PPO, and it's really interesting too because you can choose which type you want. I want you to keep in mind too that depending on what kind of insurance you have, you also have access to certain kinds of health savings accounts. That's like a whole other thing that I won't have time to get into today. But what I suggest is doing a mini sinking funds for your health account. So, you know, you have your health budget category. And if you know that your deductible perhaps is a bit higher, I would try to stock away some money in there every month because we all know, like, I mean, I work in the ER, like I can see you guys at any moment in time, you know, emergencies happen. And I feel like if you have money in there already, which is what we do, we try to have a certain amount that will cover at least like a couple of copays. For us, we hardly have a deductible, but if you know you do, plan for it. And if you don't use it, roll it over because having it there again will just give you that peace of mind knowing that I don't have to make that decision of do I have enough money to go see the doctor or do I have enough money to take my kid into the ER or whatever. So those are the kind of tough questions that we want to completely take away, you know, once we get your finances in order.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and ask this question, and I'll go back to your other question, Laurel, just because it's on the same vein as what we're talking about. Veronica asked, is the emergency account separate from the savings account? And on that, Jennifer also asked, do you have many different accounts for different categories at the same institution or various institutions? So how do you kind of keep these different?
Yes,
separate?
This is an excellent question. I get this all the time. This is interesting. So the best way for us, because we do have our accounts in multiple checking and multiple savings accounts where we access them regularly. This is what I want you, like a really brief thing when you're deciding on your accounts in general. There should be no reason why you're paying any kind of like a regular banking fees. For example, you shouldn't have to be paying for like, you know, things like transfer fees, like even sometimes like, what do they call the credit unions? A lot of the credit unions offer really, really, really great benefits. So I would look into those, because if you're getting charged regularly for banking fees, you need to reevaluate, because there's a lot of different other accounts out there that will offer you much better perks, or you can even try to negotiate with your own bank, because a lot of times they don't want to lose the money that you have sitting with them. But going back to your question, I want to be very transparent. So that's one of the main reasons why we use the program that we do. You need a budget, because at any given time, we can not only see how much money is in a given account, but we can also see our whole budget. So it can be very confusing otherwise if you're using like all these different, because like for us, we have four different accounts. It can be very confusing to keep things straight when you're budgeting, but when things are different accounts, when you're trying to make sure that nothing overdrafts. YNAB provides the most transparency if you plan on keeping your money in more than one account. So like I said, I can't really speak to the other ones, but I just recommend that if you do want to keep multiple accounts, although you don't really need to unless you're getting a good interest rate back, then I would suggest YNAB. But you want to try to keep it simple if you can, you know, like really two to four accounts max, I think.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Let me go back to Laurel's question. How do you budget if you and your partner keep finances separate, and if they are self-employed with highly variable income, like an artist?
Yes, that is a good question. So I guess I have here, I want to ask a question back. Do you plan, like, are you guys, like this is your partner. Are you guys going to be like married? Just wondering, are you going to get married anytime soon? Just the reason why I ask is because I feel like having complete financial transparency is really key when it comes to budgeting, especially together. So if this is someone that you're really, you know, serious about, I think it's good to start talking about it together. Sure, you can keep your finances separate, and that's great. You can decide who's going to be in charge of what now. But I think if you think that it's going towards marriage, I really highly recommend starting to talk about the future and what it looks like to consolidate your accounts, because I think it's really important to be on the same page when it comes to finances. So as far as that goes, what I would say is just be clear right now about who is in charge of what. And I think if you feel comfortable enough, maybe have your budget meetings simultaneously, but also talk about it together. Like, okay, you know, just looking forward, it looks like, you know, I was a little short in this category this month, you know, maybe you can get that next month, or maybe in the future we can. I just feel like starting an open dialogue about it as soon as possible is really, really, really important, and start to plan for the future.
Okay, thanks. Nicole, are we still good on time, or do we have time for a few more?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. So when I begin to budget, I get overwhelmed with saving versus putting more towards debt. Is there one to prioritize first?
Yes, that's a good question. My recommendation is, if you don't have an emergency fund established, I would recommend establishing that first. The reason is because if you don't have enough to cover an emergency, you're just going to go more into debt. and the interest is just going to build if you can't pay off that bill all at one time. So what you want to try to do is you want to stop the debt cycle as soon as you can. Like stop, you want to try to start paying things with cash as much as possible. If you have an emergency fund or some kind of a savings account with money there waiting, that's where I would start there. The debt, obviously, I know it's going to be bothersome because you have that interest that you have to take care of. But once you're done with one goal, it's really easy to attack another with all that extra income you're using for that first goal.
Okay, great. Let's see. What advice would you give if it seems like most of the money you make goes to your bills and slim to none left over?
That's a good question. So there's a couple of things that you can do. Really, there's only two things. You can reevaluate all the bills that you have, reevaluate all the subscriptions you have. Are they absolutely necessary? Do a line by line item on all of your expenses and think, do I need this? Some people like to live simply and they're fine with that. But if not, and if you don't have a savings in place and you're living very slim like that, I would recommend you have to increase your income, at least temporarily. I know that will obviously have its own challenges, but if you look at it as you have this goal, and once you hit a certain amount of savings, then you can be done working extra. I think it makes it easier when you're doing it, but there's really only one of two things that you can do there. And when we were paying off our debt and we were getting our finances in order, we were working it was 50 to 100 hour work weeks. And I'm not saying that is definitely not sustainable. I didn't have kids at the time, but I knew it was temporary. So we were able to do it for that short amount of time, but that's what I would recommend.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Lauren. Let's see. I think here we have one more question. Sorry. Veronica asked, what's your advice about paying off the lowest debt to the highest?
Okay, that's good. So there's two ways that you can actually attack debt. There's what you call a debt snowball. It's when you do the lowest to the highest, which is what she's recommending. What I like about that is the fact that you make traction quickly. So if you start attacking the smallest one, you pay that off in the first couple of months, you think, oh my gosh, this is great. You feel accomplished. So I think there's a lot of value to that. But the other part is the debt avalanche. So when you do that, you attack the debt with the highest amount of interest first, knowing that you are saving yourself money because it has a lot of interest. This is a completely personal decision. I feel like there is not one right or wrong way per person. I think what is the most important is how motivated will you feel after you make that decision. Will you feel better knowing that you're going to be paying less interest over the long run, even though it takes longer to pay off some of those debts? Or will you feel better knowing that you're moving along quickly and checking things off your list? I think it's a very personal decision. FYI, we did the debt snowball just because we wanted to kick some butt and just get it done really quick. But like I said, either one is great.
Okay, awesome. I think that's it for questions right now. Does anyone else have any other questions or anything we need to clarify? I think we can probably move on and we can save those questions for the end.
Awesome. Okay. So moving forward, this is the debt framework that I like to use. So freedom, right? That's what we all want. We want freedom of our finances. We want freedom of our time. I feel like is the most important thing. So the debt-free framework for me is form your plan and purpose. This is huge. I think that when those hard days come, you have to be able to revert back to why are you doing this? And that is probably one of the most important things in establishing your journey and to keep you going when times get hard, because that inevitably you will have hard moments. Reinforce your goal by writing it down and posting it somewhere visible. So we had made this big debt-free chart. My husband and my mother-in-law made it. And it was really motivating because every time we paid off a certain amount of debt, we would cut off a piece. And by the end, it was like, you know, we took off all the pieces of dirt and it was just clear land, you know, is what our picture was of, and the beach, because that's our happy place. But when you can see your goal and you can see the progress that you're making, it's very, very, very motivating. Establish a rainy day fund. We've talked about that. Establish the zero-based budget. Decide an accountability partner. Organize a regular budget meeting. We talked about doing at least like the monthly sit-down budget meeting. Maintain consistency and regularly pay extra towards your debt. Now, just to clarify that last one, that might take a few steps. You know, you might have to wait until your emergency fund is already established, but that's the goal, right? Like this is the framework. And once you hit all the other things, then you can go ahead and start to pay off your debt. So I think, let me see, that might be, okay, this is one of my favorite quotes of all time. Real wealth is about freedom. What we learned, like one of the most important things that we learned after paying off our debt was that we have complete control of our time. My husband doesn't have to work overtime. I don't have to pick up extra shifts. I actually work per diem now as an ER nurse, and I'm able to homeschool my kids. And it's been just a really big, just blessing to be able to own our time and not feel like we have to trade our time for work because of our finances. So I just want to encourage you that you guys are already starting off on a really good foot, and I want to thank you for being here. And if there's any more questions, I'm happy to take them.
All right, we have a question from Laurel. What are your thoughts on the Round Up Pennies app, like I think it's Capital or Acorns?
Oh, you know, I haven't used those a lot. I think that would be, perhaps when you're first starting out, that would be okay. The reason why I think I would have a hard time with it is because, you know, I think the more precise you get with your budgeting, like down to the penny, the more financial clarity that you have. So whereas this app will do that for you, what I like about doing it yourself, like when you look at your budget and you see that you have $20 extra, you can decide like where you're going to put that money instead of the app. So for me, that's just my personal preference. I like complete clarity down to the penny. But for others, you know, maybe you want to try it, but I think that eventually you'll want to get to the point where you tell your money every single penny what to do.
This is not a question, but I think you should hear this. Amy said, thank you so much for presenting this information. Much appreciated. And Laurel said, thank you.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. I'm so happy to be here. I just have to say, like, too, you know, nurses, like, we have such a hard job. Like, we work so hard. And the thing is that we make a really good living, you know, and it makes me like sad or bummed out when I hear like that nurses don't have a plan, because I feel like we give our life's work to helping others, but we have to make the time and the space and the effort to help ourselves too, you know. And I think that our future, we want to be able to retire on time. We want to be able to free up our mental space, take away the finance aspect, and really be present for our patients, present for our family. And I think that this is just one of those things that is really fundamental in order to have a really good life, like when you're done with nursing, or when you want to be done, you know, who knows, or when you want to trade your specialty. So I just want to say thank you guys. I get it. I know what it's like.
Let's see. So Lydia asked if there's going to be a virtual event about investing in retirement planning. And I just want to kind of say this out loud that we do have several other financial events coming up. So you can click on the link that Nicole just shared to look at all of them, but we will have an investing event on the 21st as well. So yep. I'm excited about all those myself.
And Lauren will be joining us again in 2 weeks to do an event about paying down debt. So if that's something that you're interested in, please join us again and share it with your nurse family and friends. And then after that one, we have one on financial literacy, and then we have one on financial freedom, and then we have the investing event. So really we are covering all of these topics. And as Lauren so eloquently described, the portion of the budgeting is kind of the first step. So feel free to join us for all 5, or kind of mix and match to see what you need most. That's pretty much it. Lauren, thank you so much for all the amazing information you shared. And just to reiterate, we really appreciate everyone attending and the great questions that you asked. Please feel free to give us all the feedback, good, bad, and indifferent. We'd love to hear how this went for you. And hopefully we'll see you at another virtual event soon. Good night.
Bye. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Lauren. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Bye.
Have a great night.